Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery podcast, brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in beautiful downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we're experiencing some of the wonderful hazy smoke from the fires up north. I learned today that the smoke, the haze in the air, is from fires.
I did not know that.
But they are fires in Canada, not the ones out in Oregon, or the ones in Montana, or the ones in California. These are the ones in
Wait, are you
Canada.
saying the world is on
Thanks
fire?
a lot, Canada.
Well, I think this is going to be kind of a fun. Sometimes we just got to keep it light. Although I have a little anecdote that's not very light. It's kind of interesting.
Sometimes we got to keep things light. Goes into a story about a dead fish.
Kinda. Yeah. So this is going to be kind of a light, fun episode of It's one of our infamous top 5 lists, and we always have fun with our top 5 list.
Hey, we didn't introduce ourselves. I'm thrown off.
Oh, sorry. My name's Ben.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Charles.
See, now I feel better.
Okay, good. It's all about you tonight. Let's say that's going to be part of the theme. It's going to be all about Amy.
Oh, geez, I'm not that prepared, guys.
I'm just kidding, giving you a hard time. So I had, I took about 2, maybe 3 minutes to prepare for this one. At least well in advance, like at least 15 minutes in advance. I'm just kidding. I was a little more prepared than that. But I thought, how am I going to prepare for top 5 fish I didn't think I would love? I thought about going back to fish that I didn't used to like, but I do now. It's kind of how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
So I got out my trusty Klaus Payson Guide to Aquarium Fishes that I accidentally stole from a library in 1978. Maybe 81.
This is how the
But who's
librarians finally find you.
Yeah. Some of you have heard us talk about this book on some of our previous podcasts, but it was kind of interesting. So I got that book out and started flipping through the pictures to say, hey, I remember that picture, and I remember not thinking that fish was cool. And now I like it. And I ran across some. But I did run across something interesting because I remember thinking a different note. I remember thinking, hey, I thought that fish was cool, and now I don't. Mm-hmm. And it led me to a very interesting thing about a book that was written in 1970. I saw a picture of what I thought was the iridescent shark. And then I turned the page and I saw a picture of, oh, wait, that's an iridescent shark. What's the other one that I saw? And it's the hobby trade name for it back then was the false iridescent shark, and it's not the one we know about.
Yeah, the little mini one.
Right. This is called Platitropus siamensis, which I had never heard of.
No.
Right? So I thought, well, if there's a fish I've never heard of, I should Google it. And I did. And in the back of this book, by the way, there's a nice little description about the fact that it gets pretty big, and so it needs a big tank, and there's descriptions of how to keep this fish. Mm-hmm. Very brief. That fish doesn't exist anymore. It was labeled as extinct in 1978. Hasn't been seen since 1978. In 1970, it was considered common in the aquarium trade.
Wow.
I thought that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, little chunk of history.
So 2011 was when they said, okay, no one's been able to find this fish since 1970. I have my dates off a little bit. 1977 was when no one has seen this fish. It's from one of the very polluted rivers in Southeast Asia. But it's kind of was interesting that I have a book that talks about a fish
that doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that's a bummer.
Way to go, Ben. That's supposed to be light.
Yeah, that's one thing that books can't do is update.
They can't update. Yeah. So anyway, I did go through the book, and I did find some fish and thought, oh, yeah, I remember seeing that picture and going, wow, that's a dumb looking fish. I don't want that. And some of them were like, but wait, now I do actually like them. So that's how
it was really difficult.
Was it?
Like, we're just so much more prone to liking things around here.
That's true. How did you make your list?
So it's really hard for me personally, too, because most of my trajectory into aquariums is retail based. So, I don't often give myself permission not to like things because I need to understand why people do. And also, just, I'm not here to hate. I'm here to help you with your tank.
Right.
Right? So, some of mine are fish that either I had some preconceived notions about that have since dissipated, and some are ones that I've just warmed up to over time and softened a little bit in some of my opinions on.
So you have some of your background is that you used to work at a big box store.
Yeah, and I
some
pretty
of them,
much started keeping aquariums when I started working at fish stores.
But were there some fish that when you worked at the big box store you went, ugh, I can't stand this fish, and now you like them?
Probably not.
No. All right. How about you, Charles? How'd you make your list?
My list was fairly easy for me, mostly just because it was like I got a couple examples of fish where I was just like, wow, I thought this would be the lame fish in that group, and it turns out it's the cool one.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a good way to go for it.
Or it's just, how do I not... I guess I'm just going to have to give it away. If our listening audience hasn't figured out, I do have some biases against certain groups of fish.
Certain families.
And this list is predominantly a homage to, these are the fish that beat the odds and managed to convince me, no, you're an idiot.
Perfect.
I like it. Let's get right into it. Amy,
Okay.
you traditionally start.
Who should I start with this time?
Not that one.
Okay. I'm going to start with one that I didn't like for a variety of reasons, but now I've definitely come around to just kind of smiling when I see them, and that's upside down catfish.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I always thought they were sick. Like, anytime I would have
Right.
seen them in somebody else's aquarium, I was like, oh, that fish is dying.
I get that.
So beyond that, there's a fish that you never see. They're big and chunky. It's just never something I'd steer towards. Having a couple of them around here and like watching them and getting to see their behaviors and sort of figuring them out a little bit, I've definitely come around to all of the Synodontis, but that's the one that I did not like specifically.
They don't get nearly as big as a lot of the other Synodontis catfish do.
Yeah, they're much more doable.
Are they, if I remember correctly, they're not technically in the genus Synodontis.
As far as I know, they
Are
are,
they?
but I don't know.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me make sure that we're talking about the right fish.
Well, it's the upside down catfish is, I believe, was in that genus, so it's closely related. But I'm not sure that it still is in that genus, like Parasynodontis or Altosynodontis
Oh,
or
I see.
Neosynodontis or something like that.
Let's see. Google says it should be nigraventris. Seriously, fish still has them as a Synodontis.
Synodontis?
Yeah.
I trust them. Under synonyms, does it give any synonyms for it?
Synonyms?
Synonyms? Synonym?
No?
Can I have some synonyms with my sugar?
The thing with them, too, that is sort
Okay.
of like indicative of how I've matured a little bit in like the way I look at fish is the patterns on Synos.
Yeah.
You're never going to get a colorful Synodontis. The closest thing is like, oh, these ones are gray instead of brown. But
Right.
the patterns and textures and fin extensions and stuff like that are really interesting and cool and all a little bit unique.
The upside down cats, when you put them in a group, they're really, really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Super active. They're diurnal,
Yeah.
like a lot of Synodontis cats are.
Right.
Not all of them, but yeah, they're great.
They're kind of like a cryptic catfish that
Yeah.
comes out when you want to see them.
I would have, like, if we did a top 5, and maybe we should do this, but if we did a top 5 fish you liked as a kid but never see anymore, that would be on that list.
Yeah, nobody
I liked them
seems
from
to
day
keep
one.
them. Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a fun one, Amy. Do you like, you started out fun.
Yeah.
All right, Charles, what's the first fish on your list?
All right. I'm going to go with what, depending on what you guys say, might end up being the only non-cichlid I mentioned today. Beckford's pencilfish.
Oh, I could see that one.
Because, like, they came in and I was like, wow, compared to, like, a coral red or a purple pencilfish, this fish is really lame.
They come in looking a little bit like a boring brown fish.
I was like, great, all right, cool. And then as they came through QT, they colored up a little bit. They got way more active. And then the coral reds and the purples looked exactly the same. And so by the end of it, it's like these, I feel like you're trading really cool behavior for some extra color. So like, because I've never seen cool behavior like we see from the groups of Beckfords we get from the coral reds or the purples.
Yeah.
But like I'm sure they do. They just don't do it anywhere near as often enough to keep them interesting to me.
I definitely feel like the patterning on a Beckford's I find more interesting, cooler looking than on Mortenthaleri or Notothalmus. On the, not Notothalmus, what's Mortenthaleri and
Rubrocaudatus.
Rubrocaudatus, there we go. The purple or coral red, right? Those are the two, like, you know,
The
those are
flashy
the
pencils.
flashy, pretty ones.
And it's just a splotch of red thrown over the usual striping, pretty much.
But the Beckfords they're a little more elongated. The contrast between the brown and the cream, or the brown and white, whatever you want to call it, and then they got that little orange spot. I think they're cooler. I like them.
Beautiful.
I'm with you.
And holy cow, those behaviors.
Yeah, for me, the color does not matter because they're behaviorally just so gosh darn interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They act like a threadfin rainbow almost, with the degree and frequency at which those males are sparring with each other.
But they don't seem to do it to the degree where it's stressful for me. Whereas like threadfins, I'm like, okay, they're reaching the point where I'm like, all right, they're hurting each other now. The Beckfords have never reached the point where I'm like, oh, they're still just showing up. That's fine.
Right.
That's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're very good at using that. You guys know me in streams of light in tanks, but they're really good at using that to their advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So anyways,
Yep.
Beckford's was the underdog that for me was just really like, when I first introduced to it, I was like, really? Okay, whatever. Because in my head, you're comparing it to these other two like really popular, really colorful fish.
Right.
And then by the end of it, after we sold off all three groups, I was like, wow, that one was the one I missed the most. The other two, I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah, you're not selling out. You're not cheaping out by getting the Beckfords, right?
No.
I really like pencils. I can't afford to spend $15-$20 a piece, which unfortunately is what the coral red and the purple cost. But I guess I'll settle for the Beckfords. You're not settling.
No, not even a little.
Yeah.
You're not even really giving up color, like Ben was saying.
Right.
It's a win-win-win.
They're fantastic dithers for apistos.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In fact, a biotope full of pencils with a pair of apistos, find like the exact ones that would be like whatever apisto is found where Beckford pencil fish are found.
Yeah.
That would be a very cool biotope to do.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was that was the easiest thing to put on my list.
Yep. So the first one on my list, I'm going to see, I think this has been on more than half of my lists. And I'm going to see if I can keep that going. Like tonight, I've got full justification for putting it on my list. Okay, on the Kerrison list, there's no way for me to put it on the list. But on a list that I can put it on, I'm going to see if I can put this fish on the list. And it's all because of behavior. Well, no, it's some color too. Convicts.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to go there with this one.
Gotta go convicts.
They have such a bad reputation.
They do. And I hopped on board the bad convict reputation because you see at like a big box store, you see a tank with pink convicts and regular convicts, and their colors are all drab, and the pink ones look more like flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
They're like
by the
naked
way,
fish.
I'm really not a fan of the pink ones that much anyway. That they can keep that, but they
Ben
look.
has a thing against albinos.
I do.
think we've established this at this point.
Yeah, I do. I agree. Yeah. Maybe we should do a podcast top 5 favorite albino fish, and
Ooh.
I'll be quiet the whole time.
Every once in a while, we
We're
just
like,
hear
Ben, is it your turn?
Nope.
Nope.
But convict, true good colored convict cichlids, the males get absolutely gorgeous.
I did not know they could be orange.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And they're trying to, take care of this female that's 3 times their size. And so we have a tank of convicts in the shop because just so you all know, I talk about them as being a favorite fish. Don't think you're going to make a bunch of money by breeding convicts and selling them to us because we don't pay for this fish because we don't have to. We end up with them and we sell them for 99 cents a piece. Please come buy lots of them. We'll get more. I promise.
Set up a tank just for convicts. It's a good idea.
And
Just
they'll
don't
make more.
Bring them back.
Right. You have to admire the behavior of a cichlid that in a 75-gallon tank, we can establish, I think it's 6 or 7 breeding groups where they have established their little turf and they defend their little, I don't know, softball-sized turf to the death and don't care what happens anywhere else. That behavior is so fun to watch.
It's amazing. And one of them has even been successful and produced fry.
Yeah.
Not to mention they're in there with 6-inch yo-yo loaches, which I would consider, I don't know, maybe one of the most efficient fry and egg predators you could think of.
Yeah, they're cleaning those eggs out pretty quick.
Yeah, and we've had convicts raising fry in that tank. Not for very long, but they did it.
My favorite convict behavior story was a friend of mine years ago had piranhas. And he had decided he was tired of buying feeder goldfish to feed his piranhas, which feeder goldfish was a bad idea anyway, right? But we didn't know back then. We were young and stupid, and that was a different time. But he thought, hey.
Now you're old and stupid.
Now we're old and stupid, right? Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Pardon me, had to take a drink after cheers. But anyway, he thought, convicts are easy to breed. I'm just going to breed convicts and feed the babies to the piranhas. And that didn't work. So what he ended up with, instead of a breeding tank of convicts and a tank of piranhas, he ended up with a pair of piranhas hiding in the corner from the newly established breeding colony of convicts in the piranha tank.
From the babies he was trying to feed
From the baby
them.
he was trying to feed to them. Yeah. That is
completely
resilience.
believe you.
I know. That is resilience. And that makes me appreciate a fish that I never used to appreciate. So there we go. Convicts. I went there first.
It's a pretty solid choice.
Was that on your list?
It is not on my list.
No? How about yours?
No, but I knew we would talk about them. And I never had a hate for them. You know, I never had that, that experience of just, having so many until recently. I just have a strong respect for them. My next one is a little related, though.
Is it?
Yeah, because I picked piranhas.
Sweet.
Yeah, for all the hate that we give them, for all we talk about how, they're not what they're supposed to be, what it says on the box. They're so shy. They're so passive. They're difficult to keep properly. Actually having them here made me like them more. You know, that idea of a fish that it's this mean, badass fish, that doesn't appeal to me at all.
Right.
But a large schooling Kerrison does. And a stunning one.
They're beautiful.
They're so pretty. I love just the red bellies.
Right.
Yeah.
It used to be Sarasalmus nateri, and now it's, I can't remember what the new,
Here, let me see.
it starts with a P.
I know. I did really poor research on this.
Yeah. They didn't get to keep the genus Sarasalmus. There's still a piranha species that's Sarasalmus. I believe it's Sarasalmus rhombus, which is the black piranha.
It's Pygocentris.
Pygocentris, that's right.
That's
Pygocentris
interesting.
nateri.
Are they not actually a Kerrison either?
Oh,
they're in the order Kerriciformes, but they're not in the family Kerrison.
All right.
Kerrison-like fish.
The splitters got a hold of them.
Taxonomy.
Yeah.
Hold on, I just have to look. Okay, so that's the family. It contains Pacu, piranha, and silver dollars.
Okay.
And I like piranhas more than Pacu or silver dollars.
I wouldn't disagree. I always have a hard time holding back when somebody comes in and says, I want a badass fish like a piranha. And I really want to say, which one? Did you want the badass fish or the piranha?
I mean, they're cool. I don't think they're this beefy Arnold Schwarzenegger you expect.
No, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody. Yeah, I think I'll say it like this. I don't think I've ever seen anybody set up a tank for piranhas.
Not properly.
Not properly.
Right.
Yeah, design the tank around the piranhas. They're going to get huge. You have to have a big tank. A 75 is not even starting.
Right.
I think a 200-gallon tank, pack it with driftwood, tannins, 12 piranhas. They would probably be out all the time.
We did have a customer a long time ago, 5 years ago, and he had a 220-gallon piranha tank. He had 14 piranhas in it.
That would be beautiful.
And fed them bloodworms and krill.
Yeah, they're easy to feed.
Yeah.
And don't feed them fish. Don't keep other fish with them. They'll
Right.
either be terrified or they'll kill them. But piranhas are, like, they're not really predators. They eat carrion most of the
They're
time.
mostly scavengers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they will chew on things, but they're not going to attack you while you're cleaning the tank.
I've had,
Most of the time.
Most
I've
of the
had
time.
one die because I reached my hand into the tank to clean it, and it dashed across the tank and bashed its face on the wall.
Yeah, that sounds
I'm
right.
sure being more established, they'd get a little more confident. But it's not like, I mean, I keep a mantis shrimp tank, so I'm really not afraid of, like, what an
Right.
animal's going to do to me.
Right.
You just pay attention.
Yeah.
Like,
We do have a woebegong here.
yeah, you just pay attention. I don't know. I never thought I would like them, but
Yeah.
after that last batch we had, even though I had to say no to everyone who wanted to buy them pretty much,
Right.
I still enjoyed
Except
having
for
them
the
here.
last person.
Except for the last person.
Right. Who they were planning on setting up a.
I don't remember specifically.
Okay.
It would have been someone who at least had a 75 and at least was only going to keep piranhas.
Okay.
But I don't know
Okay.
who it was.
Yeah. That's a good one. I can appreciate that. What cichlid are we going to talk about next?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the gateway drug that started it all.
Wait.
I'll give you a hint. This one has
McMaster-eye?
this one
I
has
was going to say
this one
McMaster-eye.
had two things working against it. This was a captive strain.
Oh, the redneck McMaster.
yeah, of a captive strain of a cichlid.
And this is the section of the podcast where Charles sells out
Yep.
because he's pretty.
I was genuinely like,
They're gorgeous.
I was like, holy crap, those are awesome. What are those? And Amy, this was back at the old store. Amy's like, oh, that's an episton. I was like, damn it.
I don't want to like cichlids.
Because like Ben had been like chiseling away at that for a few months. Where he's like, I feel like you'll like a pistos. I just feel like you will. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man. That just doesn't sound right. No, I don't know. And I was just willing to die on that hill. And then that McMaster Ice came in, and I was like,
Yep.
and so that would have probably been about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it did not take long to convert you over to a Pistos.
And
Yeah.
you bought that pair, right?
I bought a trio.
A trio. Oh, I remember them
Yeah.
now because you brought them back.
I did.
Yeah, they were here for a while.
Yeah.
They ended up in the ellipse for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So if McMaster-eye and Beckford's pencil are from the same biotope,
Exactly.
now we're talking about something Charles could get his hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's, I don't have a lot to say about this fish because it was literally that superficial. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, that thing is gorgeous. And then I just started the whole ball rolling and me being like, all right, what else is it going on here?
A perfect McMaster-eye tank to me would be a 20 long with a silica sand bottom, some good pieces of driftwood, and maybe some epiphytes, maybe something to get some plants in there, and then something like a group of Beckford's pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they, what is it? Right now, my favorite sand for in tanks is that Carib Sea Sunset Gold.
Yes.
And I
Beautiful.
Like, I want to call that out specifically, not sponsored, by the way, but that sand looks gorgeous.
It is. It is very cool.
It's my
Yep,
go-to.
I agree.
Right now.
Yep. I agree.
But yeah, they would be cute digging around in there.
Yeah. I like it. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going with a specific member of a whole group of fish. I have two of these. But yeah, okay, I'll start with one. A specific member of a whole group of fish that I used to think the whole group just looked dumb. And now I really like pretty much the whole group, partially because they do have a little bit of a goofy look, but not entirely. But then there are members of the genus that are absolutely gorgeous, and one of them is one of my all-time favorite fish. Cory cats.
Yeah.
Going through my book, and I remember seeing him in stores, like when I would ride my bike to a store. Like, that's how far back we're going here. That's more than 10 years for anyone who's counting. A lot more. And looking at Cory cats in the tank going, those just look stupid. I don't like them at all. And now Corydoras adolphi is a go-to. I love that fish. It is a favorite fish for me.
Hey, you want to talk about how much you love Cory cats? Talk about that tank you've been working on with
Yeah,
Nick.
we're kind of designing an entire tank around a massive group of Cory cats. So,
So you've really
I
come
have
around
come
on that one.
completely full circle on Cory cats.
It's not a flashy group of fish, like not a see it across the room and know you're gonna love it fish. It does take a little bit to sort of like appreciate Corys.
To me, the way to appreciate Corys with almost all of the species, not all of them, many of them want to be in really little groups, but if you keep a big group of them, the behavior, the constant movement, some of the really cool color patterns, I shouldn't say some of, they have really cool color patterns. They all have interesting, unique color patterns specific to their species.
The
Some of them
wiggliness.
the wiggliness. Some of them are really confusing.
I love them
Yeah.
in sand because they will bury themselves up to their eyeballs trying to find something.
Mm-hmm.
Snuffle around.
Jam that snuffle right down into the sand. Yeah. But yeah, I never
Cute.
liked them when I was young
I could see that.
for no other reason than the fact that they're goofy looking.
I just like sniffy fish, so
Yeah.
they immediately hit my
Yeah.
radar.
Yeah.
I do too now.
Corys are so cute.
Yep.
All right. Where am I going to take this one next? All right. I'll start with this one because two of mine had to do with having a bias against algae eaters. Just because like I get so sick of hearing people be like, "Oh, I need an algae eater for my tank," or "What am I going to do about my algae?" and figure out what's wrong with your tank and fix that first and then come back and talk to me. But hearing people
Right.
talk about this one, well, you know, the pleco that looks like a stingray. I already hated Hillstream loaches by the time we ever got them in. Because oh, well, I need something to eat my algae. There's that one pleco that looks like a stingray. And that turned me off of the whole group of fish for a long
Oh,
time.
right.
Because, I mean, first of all, they don't look like a stingray. They're not related in any way. And they're not related to a pleco in any way. They're completely different species. And this is when I've swung around on hard because I love Hillstream loaches now. Even the ones that aren't the flat, round ones. That whole group of fish is really interesting and very unique and specialized. But
Have you ever seen an electric stingray?
an electric stingray?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You should look at an electric stingray. They look a lot like a Hillstream loach.
Yeah, I totally get the comparison, but anything that's like trendy just sends up that flag to me. And they like hit hard, and then everybody was asking for them.
That's true. We couldn't keep them in stock for a little while.
Yeah,
The Aromizons and the Gastromizons are easily my favorite two genera of that entire group. To me, they just the most behaviorally weird.
yeah,
And more active.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
They are.
Because those are the ones that, like, there are a couple species that are specialized in eating black brush algae.
Yeah.
And
We
I'm-
like that.
And I'm like, what? Why would anything want to eat that? That's disgusting.
They're so specialized that in a lot of the environments that they come from, only one thing grows. So sometimes that's
Right.
black brush algae, and get with the program. Like, it's so cool.
One of the reasons to continue to dislike them is when you have to catch them. I have
Yes.
never experienced a fish that is better at hanging on to the side of a tank than a Hillstream loach.
Yeah, their whole body is a suction cup.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And they will just...
Yeah. Even outside of the water, they will suction cup so hard to the
Right.
glass that you can't get them off with a net. You need to like get your fingernail underneath them and pry them off.
My favorite method for getting them out of a tank is to make sure there's at least one flat rock in the tank. And you chase them until they grab onto that flat rock, pull the rock out of the water. Then you can squeeze them off of there into the net.
Yeah. Once you get them in your tank, they're adorable.
Yeah. There's a Hillstream Loach for many different tank ideas.
Yeah. And some of them only get 1 or 2 inches, like the ones Charles was just talking about. So in a lot of situations where you could put an auto, you could also put a Hillstream Loach.
How small would you go with the Gastromaisons? Those are the smaller ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem there just becomes oxygenation. You could probably do them in a 5-gallon, but they do need highly oxygenated water, whether that's a planted tank that's growing really successfully, a lot of turnover or current. We have had a couple of people not do well with them in newer tanks that are more prone to getting spikes. So an established tank that's well oxygenated, I think you could go to a 5 with some of those smaller species.
Yeah, especially if you put like an AquaClear on the short side of the tank, causing some major turnover and getting some current going in there.
Yeah.
Some nice round, smooth rocks.
And the nice thing is every surface works for them. So it's not like a schooling fish where they're looking to dart back and forth. They're just, they can have 6 sides to climb on.
I like that. Yep. Cool fish. Those guys are fun.
You want to know what my favorite thing about them is?
What's that?
They're native to Borneo. You know what that means?
What,
Licorice
Charles?
gouramis are also native to Borneo, as well as a bunch of the wild bettas. And if you protect orangutan habitat, you also protect Hillstream Loach habitat.
Exactly.
How'd I do? Was that good?
That's really good. A lot of but to be more specific, just for the podcast, if you're building a biotope for a mouth-fruiting betta, guess what's often in the same
Oh,
stream?
yeah. Yep.
There's usually a species of Hillstream Loach.
So often mouth brooding is a reproductive reaction to a certain predator.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the Hillstream Loaches... No, you know what? I'm just rethinking that because the opposite for... the other breeding method for a mouth brooding betta would be a bubble nester. And so the reaction to... The reproductive reaction for mouth breeding bettas was probably to faster moving water where the bubble nest would get destroyed, huh?
It's actually kind of interesting. There's a lot of debate on that in taxonomy, but mouth brooding seems to be the ancestral state in bettas.
So it started there,
Yeah.
and bubble nesting came later.
Yes.
Interesting.
And so what's really interesting about the mouth brooding to me is that since it's the ancestral state, there isn't actually a correlation between faster stream or stagnant water in mouth brooding or bubble nesting. Like you need stagnant water to bubble nest, but you don't need fast flowing water or stagnant water to mouth brood.
So then maybe that was a reaction to a predator of the eggs, which maybe that was Hillstream Loaches.
Perhaps.
Yeah. There'd probably also be some gobies in the area, too, that might
True.
be a little more predatory.
True.
Those sneaky beaky.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Fun. Hillstream Loaches and Betta unimaculata would be a pretty cool combination.
I
Yeah.
like that. Let's do it.
Okay.
So the next one on my list.
Hey, it's my turn.
Oh, yeah, because you were talking, and so I thought it was you. The next
Sorry.
one on my list is going to be really fun to talk about after Charles talks about his.
All right. I decided I'm going to throw in one of my alternates because I'm surprised the group hasn't come up at all. And like thinking about it, I understand why.
It's early.
Yeah. So does Amy remember you were standing next to me the first time I saw a Nothobranchus? Do you remember my exact reaction?
I do not remember that at all.
My exact reaction was, that fish has the dumbest looking face I have ever seen on a fish.
That's what you thought about a Notho?
That's exactly what I thought.
No.
Well,
that
this
was the wrong reaction.
Yep.
no fish in this group would come up with me because the nature of the talk is fish we didn't used to like and now do, or at least that's kind of how I interpreted, right? And I kind of started liking fish because of killifish.
It's true.
So,
But, man, this one was tough for me because I was like, I mean, it's got cool colors, but for a long time, I could not get over the face on that thing.
like me with a Cory cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then, just because people started asking questions, I started looking into it. And I
Right.
started liking them even less because
Really?
it sounded really complicated. Because killifish keepers are hardcore.
Oh yeah.
And that is intimidating.
Yeah.
And so, that was a big mental hurdle for me to get over and be like, you should try it. And so for a long time, I was just like, this does not sound enjoyable. I don't care how colorful they look. It doesn't look like it's worth it. And then I finally got the courage to ask you what you knew about Achilles. Do you remember this conversation?
Yes, I do.
And this was back at the old store.
Yeah.
And this was back when I think I was working 8 hours a week at that time.
I think you're right.
And it was like I worked Saturdays and 2 hours after I finished at the Institute 2 weekdays.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And I just walked in the back and walked up to Ben while he was at his desk. And I was like, what do you know about Achilles? And it was kind of this was back when I was not very confident in my place here.
Uh-huh.
And Ben took his glasses off, pushed away from his desk, and he's like, what do you want to know? And over the course of that conversation, that's when I got the confidence to try it. And I liked it.
Yeah.
When I took home my first pair of Achilles, I was still not sure if I was going to like it.
I could see it. Achilles they're intimidating. They don't need to be.
No.
And you can't compare them to anything else to say, like, well, you enjoyed breeding cherry barbs, so you're probably going to like Nothobranchius. Like, they're just so specific.
Yeah, because if you dry everything out and make it look like it's going to die, you'll be better at breeding killifish. Or Nothobranchius killifish, at least.
And that's kind of why I decided I want to talk about them, because it was an alternate, because I wanted to talk about cichlids, because you know me and cichlids.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, maybe this is an experience a lot of people have had where they look at a killifish and they think, oh, that's pretty. Or in my case, they think it looks dumb. And then they look into keeping killies a little bit, and then they're immediately intimidated by how intense killie keepers are.
Oh, man.
And so they just don't get into it. And now, down the road, I don't keep killies now, but I did, and we breed them here, and we talk about them, and we sell them, and it's for me, killies are almost at the level of bettas for how much I talk about fish here, and how excited I get when someone comes in and is like, oh, what do you know about killies? And I'm like, oh, thank God I get to talk about killies today.
Absolutely.
Killies are probably my favorite excuse to bring someone into the basement.
Yep.
So I think of anything talked about today, this group of fishes might be the biggest turnaround for me on anything.
It's a group of fish that has probably, I'm going to go with the second lowest cost of entry. As a group, the lowest cost of entry. There's some specific, if you want to get into, I want to keep a really easy fish. I want to spend the least amount of money to keep a fish. A 2.5 gallon tank and a betta and a heater and some food. You're done. Right? Okay, make that a 2.5 gallon tank, a betta, or 2.5 gallon tank, a heater, and a lid. And you could start keeping killifish. Otherwise, some Tupperware and some cocoa fiber, and you can start breeding Nothobranchius killies.
Or some yarn, and you can start breeding amphicemians or whatever.
Or Fundulopancha, right.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that killies are one of those... I'm going to die on the hill of... I think every fish keeper at some point needs to breed a killie just to say they did.
I don't disagree.
Because if you have room for a 2.5 gallon anywhere, your lifestyle can accommodate some killie out there.
Absolutely.
So, that's my pitch for killiefishes for anyone who's
good pitch.
For anyone who's been intimidated by them, don't be.
Don't be.
It almost makes it more intimidating for you to say that, because you are becoming the intense killie keeper.
I know.
They're like evangelical.
I thought I saw the light.
And everything changed.
Yeah, but when the light hits the back of Nothobranchius racovii, That's shine.
I love it.
Here's a true pitch for how gorgeous Nothos can be. I don't really like the color yellow, like almost at all.
Yeah.
Nothobranchius guntheri is my second favorite species of killie.
They're yellow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a cool yellow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
Excellent, Charles.
I can't follow that. I think we should just close right here or just talk about killies for the next hour.
Yeah, this just becomes a completely different podcast now. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite? What's your favorite red one?
I don't know why I thought this podcast could not include killies for me, but like literally while Amy was talking about hers, I was like, I got to.
You did.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to talk about when I was introducing Cory cats, like there was 3/4 of the way through the introduction that I could have said this fish instead. I didn't like the whole group because the whole group I thought looked a little dumb and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, yada, 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 right? That group would be gouramis. That I didn't like gouramis at all at first. I thought they looked a little silly.
Which they do.
You didn't
They
like
did.
their little feelies?
That I started to appreciate them for that. And then we got in the wild color form of honey gouramis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those males were some of the coolest looking fish that I think we've ever gotten in.
That's not an orange you can beat.
No. And the orange in the contrast with the black bar they get when they're ready.
And like if you get a really good one and it's got that perfect little strip of blue and a perfect little strip of yellow.
Yep. Trichogaster tuna or
Tuna.
or they also Trichopodus, depending on which book or taxonomist you're talking to, either Trichogaster or Trichopodus. Yeah, and the wild ones seem to want to start breeding here every time we get them in.
Mm-hmm.
When we get pairs in whatever tank we put them in, they are just like starting to make that bubble nest and starting to go. But for me, it was the color pattern on the male that made me appreciate that fish and made me appreciate all gouramis. I actually now like pearl gouramis even. And when blue gouramis are behaving right, they're really cool. But the honey gouramis to me were...
Yeah, the 3 spots are the hardest pitch. Sparkling and croaking and like licorice gouramis, those are all at least like funky, wild type looking fish, but they don't
Right.
have that flash.
Right. It's true. Yep.
Well, your licorice gouramis 99% of the time won't have that flash. And then 1% of the time they're the most beautiful fish you've ever seen.
That's a pretty good summation. And they're so beautiful that they're still worth keeping, even though they're a real pain in the... Anyway.
That was a good one. I could definitely see honey gouramis being that fish.
Yeah. A 5.5 gallon tank should be easy. I don't know how to go smaller than a 5.5 gallon. But
I've heard people ask me if they could do it in the place of a single betta, and I don't see why you couldn't. It just feels weird to me.
yeah. Going smaller than 5 gallons, I think that might be a little problematic.
Tight.
Just because the males are still going to get a little bit feisty with the females a little bit. You want to have some good cover in there.
But
And you
if-
want to have a spot where that female can just say, hey, dude, I need to chill out here, and I need my side, you need your side. We'll be fine in a little while.
You're just such a breeder. You could probably do a single one in a 2.5.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just want to keep a male, but he's not going to keep that
He
color
won't
all
be
the
as
time.
pretty, no.
Yeah.
Or hear me out.
Yeah.
If you just really like the personality of a female.
They don't have the color, though.
Yeah, well.
I like the color. For me, and the color is what won me over.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
referring to people, not you. I do have customers.
You just called me a not person.
Yeah,
you know
I know.
that, right?
Ben doesn't count.
A robot over here.
I think that was a great one.
All right, Amy, I had to follow killifish, so now you have to follow the honey gourami. I think.
I think I actually have a pretty decent one, and
Yeah?
and maybe you guys will agree with me. This is one that I'm sort of still in the process of coming around on,
Ooh.
because it's probably one I've had the strongest feelings about.
Ooh, interesting.
Because if your only exposure to this fish is the most common version of it, you're probably going to hate it. Does that give you enough information?
I have an idea.
No.
I want to talk about plecos.
Aha.
I even fed it to you a little bit.
Yep.
Coming from the only thing I knew about plecos being you never want to keep one.
Right.
Because if you're talking about the common pleco, I don't think anybody should want to keep it. I mean, maybe if you've got a big enough tank, but at that point, there's so many cooler ones you could do.
If there's a fish that we would, do the top 5, this fish doesn't belong in the hobby.
Yeah.
The fish that's so prevalent in the hobby that doesn't belong, like if there's the scale or the numbering scale
It's
with
like, whatever
right?
it is, it's dead in the center.
Yes.
Yes. And so coming from that, already had a bad impression of them. I already have that bias against fish that supposedly eat algae. Most plecos don't eat algae at all. Some of them eat them as juveniles and then grow out of it. And some of them do a pretty good job, as we know from the bristlenose plecos that we keep and sell and
Right.
have in all of our service tanks. Great algae eaters. And then coming from that to the fish that we've got in our sales tanks that we never see, are way too expensive, and we never sell. They had a lot going against them. I mean, we did a podcast, the 5 reasons to hate plecos,
Right.
and all of those came first for me. Right? So, transitioning to now, getting rid of some of those preconceived notions of expecting them to eat algae, expecting them to be this specific thing, and learning like how diverse of a group of organisms they are, how different patterns and sizes and behaviors you can get. I've really turned around on, I really enjoy having plecos around. And I've thought about looking into a pair to put in my tank at home.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure what exactly is the catalyst for that. I don't know if it's just more familiarity.
Is there one that's like your current favorite?
I'm not sure. I really like the pickle pleco, the green phantom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The pickle I've never heard it called a pickle
That's what
pleco.
I call it. Because it looks like a pickle. That's probably my favorite right now, but I don't know if it's the one I would choose or not.
I think I would call that the greenest freshwater fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, is there another freshwater fish that's really, really green?
Not like a green.
Maybe a Kubotai rasbora.
Oh, yeah. That's like
That's
a
like an
lime,
iridescent.
But a lime
yeah.
green. Yeah.
Not like, yeah, there is an emerald green. There's
Right.
a lime green. That's like an army green almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But even like the little boring wood-eating plecos, I think are super cute. I love to watch them. You're probably not going to see them most of the time, but a lot of the times
You
can
mean like
get
boring
cheap
because they
ones.
bore into the wood or because they're just not that exciting?
Both a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Like those head spot delta tails we got. Well, what is he showing us?
Is that a bowfin?
What the heck is that? I don't know what that is.
So a member of our studio audience just said, this fish is green.
Is that real?
This is Amocrypterax,
like a darter or
Cryptocarax elegans. That's a green fish.
It's really green. Wait, what? Read the name for us, Charles.
Amocryptocarax.
Amocryptocarax elegans.
Elegance.
That's really cool. Well, thanks for ruining that, Robbie. That's amazing. I've never
Okay,
seen
there
that
aren't
fish before.
very many green fish, and the green phantom pleco is one of them.
I mean, you could do both. That fish looks really cool. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Yeah, he blew my mind just now.
Poof.
The snowball one is really cool too. The black with white spots.
Yeah.
Oh, it is one of the darter tetras.
Ah, right on.
That
Okay.
makes sense now.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Let's keep an eye
So
out for that.
plecos in general. All right. So which one you said the green the pickle pleco,
Mm-hmm.
which is the green phantom.
Yes. There's really not one that I've been looking at your drawing. Charles did a lovely drawing of a pleco too. There's really not one now that I could say I don't like other than the common, which isn't even. I mean, it's a species, but I think that's one that's been hybridized in the trade, right?
Gibiceps is the most common one, and that is a true species.
That's
I
like
believe.
that's the sailfin one.
I don't remember now. I stopped
know.
tracking them because I'm just
care.
mad at all
Any
of them.
plecos that stay smaller than 10 inches, I'm cool with at this point.
Okay, that's a good distinction.
Which is way more than I ever thought there
Hundreds
were.
and hundreds
Yeah.
of species.
They all look a little bit different, but seeing an adult pleco is pretty much always stunning.
They get gorgeous.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
even the boring species.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I still like the Colombian zebras.
they're a really good one.
I might like them better than the royal zebras. I was just noting the one that's in the 75 below the discus tank. That's a Colombian zebra, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a gorgeous. He was out. He was active.
that one's like the ideal pleco. I
I
feel
think
like
that might be true.
Like they're not algae eating much, but like they've got the good pattern.
Yeah.
They've got the good color. They're not super expensive,
Right.
and they're out.
Yeah.
What more could you want?
And they're not that difficult to breed in captivity. Hobbyists can do it.
What's the genus for the snowball pleco? Is that Hypensistrus?
I
I think so.
think so.
That one is LDA 70, I think. And I've gone from hating the codes to like actually kind of having fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, trying to figure out which one's which, and it gets really exciting right now because a lot of the ones that had codes 5 years ago have real names now.
Oh,
Like,
fun.
oh, that's what it's called. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, the LDA or the snowball is a hype ancestress.
Okay.
Oh, cool. So then I can say this and say this accurately. Some of my favorite plecos are always any of the ancestress-like ones. I just that face just looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you.
So then someone's just like, check out this one with spots, and I was like, I'm on board.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sold.
For me, the plecos that I like the most are the ones that have the best contrasting color. If it's a stark white and a stark black, or even a stark brown and a stark yellow like a gold nugget,
Yeah.
those are the ones I like the most. The gray with black spots, or worse, the dark gray with black spots, meh, doesn't do it for me. But when it's leopard frog, that really the distinct colors. That's
or
what I like the most.
The sternella that we had that had the bright
The red fin
orange.
sternella.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good looking fish.
It was.
But the black and white ones I like the most.
I could see that.
Which royal zebras? It's hard not to like that
it's hard
fish.
to call that fish overrated. It's
Yeah.
priced the way it is for a reason,
Right.
but man, it looks as cool as you think it's going to.
It does when you get to see it.
Yeah. During that 3 seconds where it's eating.
Right. Plecos.
Yeah. That's it.
All right, Charles. He's rolling his eyes. I used to hate this fish for all kinds of reasons, and now I have to like it because...
Yeah. I'm trying to decide because I got 3 here and I only got 2 slots left. Ugh. All right, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it. Microgeophagus ramirezi.
Rams.
Yeah. They're you know what their one saving grace for me is?
They're little.
Well, that's part of it, but biparental care. It's a small biparental care cichlid,
That is a very cool
Yeah.
thing to watch.
and very few things in nature do that.
Right.
Not just very few fish.
Things. Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah. Lots of birds, some mammals,
Yeah, some mammals.
and some fish. Anything else? Any reptiles? No.
Well, it
Do
depends.
gators?
Gators don't do biparental.
Well, there are certain species of crocodilians that do have like biparental care, but
Really?
it functions a little bit more similarly to like epistos, where the male will defend the territory and the female's like actually taking
Taking care of things. Okay.
But
So
it
a
depends
little.
on how broad your definition
Yeah.
of biparental is.
Yeah. Kind of like some of the dart frogs do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what we're talking about with the rams is both parents actively are involved in caring for the fry, not necessarily even defending them, but making
Right.
sure that they're getting food, making sure that everybody's gathered up together.
You know who else is a great example of biparental care? Convict cichlids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But rams can go in a community tank.
Well, there's that.
A piece of terminology that you and I were talking about today that we both don't like, but I
Yeah.
just used it.
Yeah. He's referring to my distaste for the term, the bilateral terminology that has been picked up by the trade of, is it aggressive or community? Like it's either one or the other. Come on.
Is this a community fish?
Or is it aggressive? Well, African cichlids from Lake Malawi would definitely fall under the category of some aggressive fish, and they live in a community.
Yeah.
And mollies are pretty aggressive little fish
Yeah.
that are often labeled as community fish. So let's stop using that term. I think we should, okay, we can use it the way we use it, but we need to tell the trade to stop using that term.
Yeah,
How about
only
this?
we're allowed to use it.
Well, if you're using
You
it,
can't use that word. Only we can use that word.
using it as a bilateral term,
Yeah.
is it one or the other? No.
How about this? I'll describe it specifically.
Okay.
Convicts show biparental care, but you can keep a pair of breeding rams in the same tank you could keep a small schooling fish in.
You could keep that
Yes.
with a group of cardinal tetras, and it would be very cool, and it would work.
Yeah.
I know, I just had to give you some crap.
That's what this whole podcast is for, though.
I know, right?
But I don't
So
know.
why did you not like rams? Just because of your problems, your hang-ups with cichlids?
Yeah, actually, 100%. I just
'Cause
really
what's not
All
to
right.
like?
well, and for a long time, I dealt with this dichotomy of for some reason, I had it in my head at some point that I could either have a pair of bettas or I could have a pair of dwarf cichlids. And that's
I could see
sometimes
how
true.
Being
Right.
wrong would make you hate cichlids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
But being right can make you hate cichlids too.
yeah. God, what a mess of organisms. But I could easily see a tank where you have, let's say, Beckford's pencilfish, and this is not biotypic at all.
Right.
Beckford's pencilfish, a pair of rams, and let's say a trio of Betta dimidiata.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a viable
That'd be
tank
fun.
right there.
That'd be a
Right.
great tank.
And then you get the benefit of watching really cool behaviors for your pencilfish, really cool biparental care from your rams, and, occasionally mouth brooding from your bettas.
Yeah.
That's, let's do that tank. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
How often do I say that in a night?
And then you never give us tanks.
How many tanks do we have?
All right, give Ben 2 more beers and then we'll set up a tank tonight.
Somebody's going to need to call me an Uber if I have 2 more of these.
It's all right, we'll
Pardon me, I
take
need
it.
to take a sip.
But I will throw out there, everyone loves the German blues best.
Yeah.
Of the captive strains, I think that's my favorite too.
Mm-hmm.
That or the Dutch Rams.
Mm-hmm.
But hear me out. Everyone at this table is going to 100% agree with me, but I'm imploring the listening audience here, not you two. Hear me out. Wild Rams, guys.
They're great.
I will full on admit they're not as flashy as the captive strains, but here's the thing. That's what I like about them more. It's a more subtle blue, and the shade that kind of gives you from across the room is just more pleasing to me. Like it's more of a softer blue.
Most of the time, I'm a wild type guy.
Yeah.
With rams, this is an exception for me.
I knew that, and
Yeah.
that's why I brought it up.
Here's the thing, though. I could have almost put the wild rams on this list. Like, I
Yeah?
did not think that I would like them. We ordered them the first time because they didn't have German blues, and I was hoping that all the people who ordered rams would be like, this is fine.
Right.
We got something. And I love them. They're a little bit
They're
smaller.
great. Yeah, they're great. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like
Yeah.
wild
But
rams.
you're choosing between amazing options.
Exactly. Yeah. But the German blue ram, and this is one of the only reasons that it's one of the few captive strains that I will take over the wild type, is they didn't take a fish and completely change it into this overdone, dramatic looking fish. Like triple red cockatoides,
Thank you.
Apistogramma
Thank you.
cockatoides versus a wild cockatoides, right? A wild cockatoides to me is a great looking fish. A triple red cockatoides, it's beautiful, but it's gaudy.
It's a completely different fish.
It is. Yeah.
Whereas, and I will admit it, a German blue ram is taking what's great about a wild ram
and
just
accentuate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
just
That's
turn
it.
up the volume a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And I like him a little bit better. Would never say someone's wrong for and wouldn't win a debate with someone who would defend the wild type over the German blue. I would say,
Yeah.
you know what? We're
I
going to
would
call
say
this
the
a draw.
exact same thing in the other direction
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah,
We got to
you're
call
both
this
right.
a draw.
we're all winners here.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the wild ones just stay a little bit smaller, and that appeals to me more than I thought it would.
They made all of those changes with selective breeding, whereas with like the fire red Agassiz, that's hybridized,
Yeah.
right? The German blue ram, they took wild rams and selectively bred for traits, and that's what they got.
I would also like to point out that that's how redneck McMaster-eyes work too.
Yes.
They take what's great about a McMaster eye and just turns it up.
Yep.
I love that.
Well done.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you got, Ben?
That's a good one. All right, I'm gonna go with it's really a whole group of fish. Actually, it's a pretty good segue because we're talking about some man-made fish,
Ooh.
and I'm going with one of the man-made. This is a fish that's been worked with for a pretty long time. Nothing like goldfish or koi, but worked with for a pretty long time, and they've come up with all kinds of little color variations. Some I think are great, some I think are meh. But this one is they took a really cool color and they put a big black splotch over it. And I still like it. And it's surprising that I like it. Tuxedo platies.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. A big group of tuxedo platies that have either a really good orange or a really good yellow with that shiny black splotch in the middle.
Because
It
the
looks
whole
good.
point of platies is bright color.
It is.
That's
Yes.
the reason that you get them. You want
Yep.
a decent sized fish that is super bright.
right.
So why would you want a black one?
I know, but there's something about that black splotch, and and maybe it goes back to exactly what we were talking about. What I like about certain plecos is that contrast, and that contrast of that big black splotch with that bright yellow or bright orange. It works for me. It's got to be a big group,
Yeah.
right? A 40-gallon, well-planted aquarium with like 50 of them in there.
So this is me not trying to, I want to be clear on this, trying to explain why I think you might like the tuxedos more. This is me explaining why I like them.
Oh, sure.
Because if I look at a group of sunset platies from across the room, it
Yeah.
looks like one big orange mass.
Oh,
If I
sure.
look like a group of 50 tuxedo platies from across the room, I know that's 50 tuxedo
It's a little more
platies.
well
Oh, I
defined.
Yeah.
get that. Yeah.
because
the
of that
definition.
contrast.
Yep.
It's a good point.
I hear you. They're fun, easy fish. They're fish that if you put them in a really big group, babies are going to show up. They're not going to get them all because there's going to be so many babies.
Yeah.
To me, that is like if kids I want to do a really colorful tank with some of those unnaturally colored fish. And granted, this isn't unnaturally colored fish, right? But it's done in different ways. But I want the glow-in-the-dark castle and all these bright colored things. If you would, for a kid that wants that, or a parent who thinks their kid wants that, do a planted aquarium with good, bright, green, easy plants and a group of tuxedo platies
The whole load of babies.
with the whole load of babies. That is going to make a hobbyist, or at least someone who is going to appreciate the ecosystem that they're building way more than, a pink castle, glow-in-the-dark fish, blue gravel, and treasure chests that open and close.
It's much more engaging.
Right. And I think part of the reason is that we don't give kids enough credit.
They
So,
love to learn.
There we go. There's my little soapbox on why parents, tuxedo platies. Write it down.
Write it down. You're an hour and 5 minutes into our podcast.
Right.
You know, and you already don't agree with us. Yeah.
So, this is a live bearer that I didn't think I would like, but Charles, it seems to me that I've heard you or had heard you in the past kind of being a little bit critical of some of the live bearers, and now all of a sudden there's a certain group that I think we have 3 distinct populations of.
You're even saying it a little too nice. Charles has been an absolute snob about live bears in the past.
Yeah. I'll own up to it, and I will fully admit I was wrong.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how to say this other than I like being right. I kind of enjoy being wrong more. Because
that's not true. You love being right.
I love being right, but when I'm in this case, when I'm proven wrong, I get to enjoy something I didn't think I would enjoy.
Oh, I hear that. Okay.
So, in particular, downstairs in the breeder lab, we've been working with a couple different strains of guppies and endlers. The lime green endlers right now, I am really proud of because we've been working on those for a couple months.
And I forced those on you.
You did. You were like, pick an endler, and I was like, this green one seems cool.
Yeah.
And anyone who wants to come down and talk about them or look at the cup, we have 5 strains of guppies and 2 strains of endlers, by the way.
I thought we had 3 strains of them. The red ones that
we've got the black bars, and we don't have a spot for the flame endlers.
Oh, do we sell all those?
So we're selling them off. They're upstairs, not downstairs.
Okay. Come in and get some
we're
flame endlers while they can.
And faster than we're selling them, but
right.
I mean, you guys may not have seen these yet. They're
gorgeous.
They should be selling way faster than they are.
But anyways, ask me about the lime green endlers that I'm actually really proud of.
And that strain has improved since you've been working with it too.
That's why I'm proud of it. For me, I was kind of I'll admit, kind of half-assing on them.
Right. Is that why the pike cichlids are so fat?
Yeah. And then someone came in. I had every couple, once a month, I go through the colonies, pick the ones that aren't going to continue the line, and I put them up for sale. And so I had someone buy some lime green endlers from us about 3 months ago, and he came in a few weeks ago, and he saw the colony. He goes, these look better than the ones I had bought. And I was just kind of yeah, I guess that's the goal. And that moment of that hooked me.
It's working.
It clicked.
And I'm
now you have to make it even better, and then better than that, and then better than that.
And so then I'm just sitting there uh-oh, did I just become an endler breeder?
I love that. That is how all of these strains of really cool strains of live bears keep on getting better. There are people that are trying to come up with new strains, and that's fine. But those people that are taking strains and just continually making them better is so fun to watch. And you can see those hyphens that we have, the hyphen platies that we have downstairs. Those came from a phenomenal breeder who had been working with that strain for a while. And when we get hyphens in from our wholesaler, they don't look nearly as good.
They look like the same strain. They are not the same caliber.
They are not the same. Right. Not at all. Yeah. That was a digression. We got out of order there because I had to call Charles out on something.
That's all right.
It's fair.
But
I can circle back around too because I've got to also eat some of my words on live bears too.
Oh no.
Just because to me, like I was just saying to you, the whole appeal to live bears has always been you get a nice bright color, and platies solved that problem to me.
right.
I didn't see any need to have them be bigger or more aggressive, so I never really got the whole swordtail and molly thing. But similarly to your platies, I think the ones that really made me turn the corner on swordtails were the tuxedo swords we got.
Yeah.
That contrast, and that's, for whatever reason, that's the thing that made me sort of understand the presence a swordtail has over a platy. a little bit more character, a little bit more personality, a little bit more feisty.
Yeah.
But I never really got this point of swordtails before.
I'm pretty happy to hear that.
Honestly, the wild ones that we've had have been wild type ones, have been my favorite, the greens.
If we can ever get our hands on Xiphophorus Montezuma,
Ugh,
which,
yeah.
by the way, the guy who supplied us with the Nothabronchus cartausi is the same guy who has said to me at one point he was going to get us a pair, and he hasn't yet. And you called Dave out on that.
Yet.
Yet. I know. I've got somebody on our order list from 2 or so years ago who ordered a Montezuma sword from us.
Yeah.
And I told him, I may never get it. I will leave you on the list. I will let you know if I find
Right.
one.
That is a specialist list that no wholesaler that I know of has ever picked up.
Yeah.
But has been traded amongst hobbyists for
And I know
decades.
Eventually it'll show up here. Eventually
Maybe.
everything shows up here.
Maybe.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
So swordtails in general, but also that whole group of fish and recognizing that there are different species that look differently. I love the Kalman swords as one I would be really happy to get into,
Mhm.
and those are much more accessible.
Kalmani. Yeah. We had a strain of Xiphophorus nezihalcoyotl.
That's a good name.
It's a good name. Yeah, and you should look at the name
Hold on.
and pretend you never heard it and then try to pronounce it.
No thanks.
Yeah. Most people just call them nezis.
Fair.
But this was
That's
just
a funny one.
super prolific strain, which is not common in nezis. It's a great little fish.
Yeah, they're really cute.
Yeah. Look at the name. Like, try to pronounce that name.
Yeah, it's like Nezahualcoyotl.
Nezihalcoyotl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a location? I don't know. I'm not going to get that much into it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, live bearers in general are something that I've never really been drawn to either. But, they trigger some of the same things that, the killies do, where specialized location, specialized breeding strategy. What were the ones that Pat brought us ages ago? The little ones with the huge gonopodiums that were, the entire size of their body.
Was that the golden teddies?
Maybe.
No, it was not.
No, it was something
Was it
different. No, it
Oh,
was,
it was
it was smaller.
Felicthes. I don't know. Live bearers, man. They're
Right? They're so
Yeah.
special.
They are.
That almost proves my point. From teeny tiny to huge, like the Montezuma swords, they're so specific, so unique, and so interesting to learn about.
And here's a fun point. Very closely related to killifish.
Yeah.
In fact, there is one of the genera of pupfish, that pupfish, killifish, live bearers, tooth carps is that group. And it is at the genus level that some of them in the genus are live bearers and some of them in the genus are egg layers. And the killifish people say, no, it's a killifish that has live birth. And some of the live bearers say, no, it's a live bearing fish that sometimes lays eggs.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah. Yep. Which, that's just why they're so interesting.
Nature is weird.
I know. All right, Charles, you got one
How
more?
dare we try and categorize it?
I do have one more.
Which one?
Enigmatochromous.
Enigmatochromous.
Aha.
Yes. Had I thought of it, that probably would have made my list.
I will accept victory for that from both of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been championing that fish for years.
That was definitely Amy was just like, look how cool this is. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
Even just the name Enigmatochromous.
That should have been enough for
That
us.
should have been enough.
Yeah.
Nope. And then the clincher for me was the pair that is now currently in the display.
Yes.
Because I had never, with my own eyes, seen a female colored up.
They're amazing.
They're gorgeous.
Also, by the way, by parental care.
It's true.
Yes. Most of the Pelvicochromis type. That's a type, right?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
'cause they used to be-
Pelvicochromis, the genus, +1.
+1.
I think there's another genus that's also... There's a couple of genera that are in the Pelvicochromis type.
Yeah, there might
I
be
can't
another
think
one.
of them off the top of my head. But this would be the group that contains the most commonly known Crebensis, which is Pelvicochromis pulcher, not
Strangely
Pelvicochromis
enough.
crebensis.
Exactly.
Yes.
Strangely enough.
And that's because it's one of those groups of fish that keeps getting lumped and divided and divided and divided and divided and lumped and then divided again.
But Enigmatochromis is a single species genus.
Yes, monotypic. Yeah, and they're amazing and they're gorgeous and they burrow.
And I
But
like blues and purples.
Subtle little burrows.
Yeah, the female with the that magenta body, blue belly, and blue dorsal fin
Ugh.
is bizarre
Yeah.
looking almost.
Yep.
It like the photos to me, I'm like, this is shop to hell. There's no way.
Yeah, no, that's
what it looks
exactly what
like.
the fish looks like. Yeah, they're awesome.
Lucanusi is the species.
Yeah.
Yes, and the Enigmatochromis lucanosi.
So, serious question, because I don't. Do Pelvicochromis show true bioparental care, or are they kind of like Apistos where it's like adjacent to bioparental
I think
care?
they are actually true parental care. And
Okay.
I think you even see that in Pulcher, in the aquarium stands of Pulcher.
Mm,
Yeah,
that gives them an extra bonus point.
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's an amazing group of fish that
Right.
deserves a lot more love.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mhm.
a lot of people would enjoy the Pelvicochromis overall, and this is a big digression, just because it's just riffs on the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
what cover of my favorite song can I find that I like better? You know what I mean? It's just
right.
It's just like, come on, there's a Pelvicochromis for almost anyone in there.
Yeah.
I think that where we can get to when we talk about a lot of these dwarf cichlids is there are a lot of tanks out there where people are building an ecosystem, and part of that ecosystem can include a pair of dwarf cichlids.
Yeah.
If they're some of the slightly more robust fish, like for example, when I had a big, huge group of platies, I had a breeding pair of Pelvicochromis pulcher in that tank, and it worked great. In a tank with cardinal tetras or pencilfish, a pair of apistos. In our tank with Sundidenu goblinis, which is one of the smaller Rasbora types or Denyo types from Southeast Asia. That's where the Enigmatochromis are. And it works really well as like this accent fish, and it really adds to an
Can
aquascape.
show off a couple of different blues, which is a color that you don't get in nature very often.
Right. Yeah, and it makes for just an amazing effect. And so the genera would be Enigmatochromis and Pelvicochromis, and what are the Transvestatus and
Nanochromis.
Nanochromis? Thank you, Nanochromis and Apistogramma and Microgeophagus. A pair of
Nanochara,
those,
I think, too.
Nanochara anomala for sure.
Yeah.
A pair of any of those fish. There are so many tanks that the way it's set up right now, boom, just add a pair of those fish.
I like to think of aquariums as like the fantasy football of nature. Like you get to pick the dream team.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
these are the players that you know, like that will get you the most points however you measure that. Like
Right.
the ones that you love and that you think will go together well. That doesn't exist out there, but you've made it. It's your fantasy team.
And it accents and it brings more to the aquarium. Whereas if you do, I want to do 3 Serpe tetras and 5 lemon tetras and 3 black phantom tetras and 2 rosy barbs and this one of these, that doesn't make for a cohesive composition.
Right.
But if you do a really nice group of one kind of schooling fish, and then you accent that with a pleco,
Each
and
member
accent
fills
that
its
with a
role.
pair of dwarf cichlids, then all of a sudden you're building a composition in an ecosystem that's going to have you're going to be able to watch the individual behaviors of the fish and how they play off of each other, and I think it just works so much better.
You'll notice a theme in all the cichlids that I mentioned today.
But they're all
little.
They're all little.
And they're not from Lake Malawi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some biases can't be overcome.
I know, right?
Well, yeah, and if you want to go bigger with your cichlids, you got to go bigger with everything else
Right.
too. So now all of a sudden it's geos and you've got a 180.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
dwarf cichlids are a godsend.
Yeah. They're perfect.
And they're just cool. They have little weird behaviors, and different species have different quirks. And
Mhm.
I'll admit it, I was wrong. I enjoy dwarf cichlids. They're cool.
Oh, how could we not mention Statocranus in that group? Mm-hmm. Sorry. And Amy's a big buffalo hood cichlid fan.
They kind of get wedged between the dwarf cichlids and the big cichlids. They're not really either.
I would put him as a dwarf.
They're a dwarf, but they can be a little bit more sassy than a pelvic acromis.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I had him with.
Here, you can either have the cichlid that goes well with small body tetras, or you can have the cichlid that goes well with serpate tetras, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
I'd still put him in the same group.
Yeah. They're definitely closer to that than they are to convicts.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Excellent choice.
Well, we're gonna finish off with another fish that often ends up on a number of our lists. I think it's been on the underrated fish list, on the great nanofish list, and it's gonna go on our. I didn't used to like this fish, but now I do. And my first real exposure to this, I've seen this fish all around. It's been this boring colored fish that you see in boring store tanks that never really looks the way that it's supposed to. And God, about, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, we had this kid living with us who really wanted to get find a home for this little soft shell turtle he got. And I am not a fan of turtles as pets. He had already had this creature. It was in the fall. We couldn't release it. We had to do something with this. And he said, yeah, I'll get this and I'll get some feeder fish for it, which I'm not a fan of that either. And they're not really piscivores, so that wasn't, none of that was a good plan.
None of that needed to happen, but now you're dealing with the situation.
Yeah, and so he put 10 white clouds in that tank with the soft-shell turtle. And the soft-shell turtle was maybe 3 inches across. So it was a little guy. And it could not catch the white clouds. And the guy, the kid, he was like 16 or 17 at the time. And he was not taking care of the tank. It did not go well for the turtle. The turtle passed. The white clouds were in the tank. And I just ignored them, but still sort of took care of the tank. I'd throw some food in for the white clouds every once in a while, but ignored them. And one day I walked past that tank, and those white clouds had matured, and a couple of the males were displaying to each other. That is an absolute incredible sight. They're gorgeous.
Drop dead gorgeous.
Absolutely beautiful.
You'd put them up against any fish that are 5 times their price.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Easy. And then there was a bunch of bushy mosses and stuff in the bottom of the tank, and babies showed up. So it was my first egg scattering fish that I bred. And it was an experience with a fish I thought was boring. When you see them in many stores, they are going to be off-colored.
Yeah.
They're going to be stressed out.
Gray with a white stripe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you see them colored up, when you see them mature and happy, they're beautiful. They're so easy. They're not very picky about water quality. If the nitrates get a little too high, not that they should, but they're probably going to be fine. Let's face it, if you've got a dead turtle with a bunch of rotting food in the tank, that tank was under some unhealthy
the turtle
conditions.
And kept the fish alive.
It kept the white clouds alive. Right.
Yeah, the turtle's not breathing that water.
Right. They don't need a heater. They can take the temperature easily down into the 50s. But for sure in the 60s or whatever ambient temperature in your house is, it's good. And other side note on this fish, it is, for all we know, extinct in the wild and is only sustained because of the aquarium hobby. So all kinds of reasons to appreciate the little white clouds.
Yeah, this is another fish where one of the common ways it was described to me when I was younger. I haven't heard it for a while, and I'm really glad because it doesn't deserve it. But I've heard it described as the poor man's neon tetra.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I'm
for
like,
sure.
that is not fair to a white cloud because that thing is as gorgeous as a neon tetra.
Yeah, it's not really fair to the neon tetra either because you don't want to invite that comparison.
Yeah, that's not
Right.
fair.
Right. Yeah, and it's not a fish. Well, for one thing, they don't end up any cheaper than a neon tetra at this point, right?
Yeah.
So they're not
It's not like they're bait fish anymore.
right.
Yeah.
But you're definitely not settling by going with a school of white clouds.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. But that stigma is there, and I think part of it is because of that name.
Well, I
Yeah.
suspect we may be talking about them again next week.
Yeah, that's possibly true. Top 5 favorite cyprinids. Yeah, that's probably true.
That was a great one.
They're gonna make my list.
You know what this discussion has taught me?
What's that?
We got to be ordering more fish we don't think we're going to like.
You know, as we say around here, Amy, you're making a lot of sense right now, and it's kind of pissing me off. That's, by the way, that is a Charles phrase. I give him full credit for that one. We do use that one a lot around here, but
that
it's a
one
good
is
phrase.
definitely running its course. Everyone uses it.
Yep.
It's not often you start saying something that everyone else starts saying back at you, and I'm okay with it in this case.
It's a good phrase, and it works.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's happened because Charles ends up saying that to me a lot.
But yeah, you make a lot of sense, and it usually pisses me off.
I love it.
I like it. Well, what are some fish out there that you thought you would never like and now you have a tank of? Something that you walked into a store and went, either when you were a kid or when you first started looking at fish, or maybe you saw in your uncle's brother's cousin's tank and said, wow, those fish are dumb. And now you keep fish and have grown a new appreciation for them.
What's the fish that you think nobody's ever going to sell you on? I'd love to hear about that too. You know, there are a lot of mbuna that are very beautiful that I don't feel like you're ever going to talk us into, but Ben might try someday.
You know, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt,
Got bored.
got bored. Yeah.
Well, be sure to check us out on Facebook. We'll definitely have a little bit of discussion over there about this episode. Check out our YouTube channel. We're Watercolors Aquarium Gallery there. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok now. We're, getting modern with all you kids out there. But be sure to reach out wherever you can. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, either put it under the episode here on Facebook or email podcast@watercolorsaquariumgallery.com.
And thank you so much for listening. Let's have lots of fun and keep those hands wet.